Hello, gorgeous human beings of the channel. A summit of sisterhood for me, for you, for us. This is our third call of the day, our final call of the day. Tomorrow we meet back again with more extraordinary speakers. But the person who is coming up next is a person that's been in my world for quite a few years, on and off, in and out, circling around each other for a while. And it's been so interesting to watch the evolution of both of us, very much in parallel and sometimes back together like a DNA strand. There's so much commonality in what we do, and yet we're so distinctly different. And it's so powerful to have experiences with Varian where we'll kind of lose touch for, a year or two or whatever, and then come back, and then months, and then come back. And this is a very powerful person that I want to introduce to you today. It's a person that doesn't really need anything from anybody. She gives people. That's the way that I experience Varian. Is she walks into a room, she gives what she's got to give, and then she goes to another room and gives what she's got to give. It's very rarely an experience of expecting something or wanting something. It's more like what's going to happen here? Where am I supposed to give? What is there for me to notice? What is there for me to learn from? How can I? But there's never this you can't really mess it up. It really just is, magic happens in her energy. And this is a very wise soul also who's come into her 50s a few years ago, and she's a 6'2". So for those of you who know human design, she's in the power time of her life right now. And so this very powerful person who knows exactly what's what, she has a very powerful internal guidance system, just kind of knows what's what, and just puts herself in the spaces that she knows are going to be good for her at any given time, and brings what she's got to bring, and then goes and does other things, and always busy on something. And I'm very excited because we're going to talk about something today that makes me laugh and smile, and it's like typical Varian that this is what we're going to talk about. And we're going to go pure Manny Gen on you. So there's going to be all kinds of different topics that are going to happen in here. But the thing that I really want from you to hear in this, like, Varian is a force. This, I think everyone that's ever met her could agree with that. But what I love about her is she said something to me that is so bold before we came on here. And what she said to me is, I just think everybody needs to listen to me. And not like they need to agree with me. Like, I don't care about that. I just think they need to listen. Does that sound weird? And I was like, no, that's exactly correct. Like, that's a 6'2's mission. Like, listen. It doesn't matter whether you agree or not. Listen, because something could come up and make you end up thinking your own thoughts, and you'll end up changing your life just by listening. And so I'm going to make an invitation at the beginning of this that I haven't made during the summit. But because Varian was brave enough to say it, and I respond, I'm going to invite you, if at any point there's something that she's saying that you feel like people should need to hear this, people should hear this, film a little segment of it, post it on your social media, tag her, Varian Brandon. Let's have the world hear what she's got to say, whether they like it or not. Let's have a party. So without further ado, let's have Varian come right in.
Hello, everybody. I see all these familiar faces. Hey. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so I have a massive question. How long have you been in the business of being Varian Brandon?
53 years.
When did you start getting paid for it?
Full-time 2017. I left my corporate job after 22 plus years in 2017, February. So I have been full-time entrepreneurship for almost 7 years.
Wow. And so I told you before, I was like, I missed you. Where have you been? I feel like I haven't seen you. And you said, no, we probably haven't, because I've been, everybody like ready to be shocked. No, you probably haven't seen me because I've been down the rabbit hole of, imagine what she's going to say. Imagine it in your head. Think you know what it is. Let us all shock you. The rabbit hole of
football, American football, for those of you who may be out of the country. American football, which is, nobody would have won a betting that I would have ever had any interest in football.
So tell us how this happens, because never have you ever been interested in football. And then at age 52, it hit you like, oh my God, yeah. Like, what is it? Tell us about how this happens.
Yeah, some of you may know who are in the United States. Several years ago in the 90s, there was a football player by the name of Deion Sanders, the best cornerback to ever play the game. If you know anything about him, you know his personality, you know how he shows up in the world. And in 2020, he was hired at Jackson State University, which is a HBCU, which is a historically Black college and university, because he wanted to get into college football coaching, and just him being the massive personality that he is, took not only Jackson State by storm, took the HBCU world by storm and the sports world as well. And one day on Instagram, there was a clip. Somebody had posted a clip, maybe 60-second clip from a press conference that he had done after a particular football game. And it was in their stories, and there was somebody that I follow, this comedian. And so the clip was there, and I saw the clip and I clicked on the clip, and I just loved the power of the clip. And so as I just begin, I'm like, what is he talking about? Oh, that's right, he's at Jackson State. And then I start following him and following the team. And it just really, not only him, the team, but just elite athleticism and all the parallels that started showing up for me as it relates to life and business, because life and business is truly a very elite sport. And so I have just been all in. In last December, he moved to Colorado University. He's now the coach in the Power Five. I've gone to games. I went to a game a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to another game a couple of weeks from now in Colorado. I mean, I'm just all in. I wish I had my book. I have my Football for Dummies book. I'm always Googling everything. I mean, I'm like all in. And this is, I mean, people who know me, they're like, what is this? And it's like, I don't know. I was telling Melanie, I say, even my mastermind for this year, when I renamed it this year, I named it The Huddle. And so I am really all in, and I just decided, you know what, this is where my attention and my heart is right now. Just follow that and just be with it.
This is such a beautiful representation of Manny Gen energy, where it's like, there's something that I'm passionate about and I love it and I'm all about it. And then all of a sudden there's something else I'm passionate about. And there's usually a connector. There's usually a point of connection, you know, where now all of a sudden you're seeing the athletes and the mindset and life and all the things in a different light. But then this other passion emerges. And so the mastermind is The Huddle. You're going to all these games. How else is it impacting you in your life? Like, what are you seeing happen through diving into this?
I mean, just watching human nature. I mean, watching the football fans, watching just how visceral they take it. Watching really, I mean, they lost a game the other night, a game that they should not have lost. And it was really an embarrassing loss. But to see how people have responded to that, and of course we intellectually know it, and you very personally know it, Melanie, just to see the vitriol and how humans respond to people and don't even realize that that's why you can't be all you can be in your life, because of the vitriol, because that's what people are afraid of. It's like people are afraid of being on a stage doing their work and people coming after them when they fail. And like I said, you know, you have experienced that, not even from failing, but well, I guess in some people's eyes, something you do, they feel like it's a failure. But I mean, you've experienced that as well, that to be on such a big stage in your life and how people will come after you and all of these things, you know, how many of us, no matter how big our businesses is, with the exception of a few, they're going to work literally in a stadium with tens of thousands of people every week. How many of us suppose, well, I can't use this because this is going out to thousands, but I imagine my mastermind Zoom meetings every week, if I were having to conduct them in a stadium of 50,000 people, just watching and criticizing and saying what I should do or have to do. And it's just really opened up the human experience for life, for business in so many different ways, just being a part of all of this. This
is huge. And I was joking with Varian, but I was like, this, you know, you probably were always destined to love football. It just was going to happen after you're 50, because that's what happens with Six Lines. A lot of their culminating breakthroughs occur after they're 50. But something that I was actually sharing with my mastermind in my Unity mastermind last week, which I think is like so cool that this is what you're bringing to the table, is I was sharing with them, I feel like there's a difference between when you're starting as an entrepreneur, you don't have a team, it's just you, you're starting out, you're playing the game of business, versus what it's like to become a professional business pro, like a business professional. And it's very similar to what it's like to play on a team, sports, and love the game, versus what it becomes once you become a sports professional, like a professional athlete. And the biggest difference is it stops being about the game and it starts being about the way you can handle the storm. Because it's normal to win and lose games when you're playing a sport. It's normal. People expect that you will win some and lose some. That's the way the game is played until you're a professional. The outrage about your failures are so intense, and the guilt and the shame and the having to manage the press conferences and the conversations and having to get back and play one more time. The big thing is eventually you've got to get and solidify your mind to say, as a business professional or as a professional athlete, how I lose is as important as how I win.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You definitely have to solidify yourself in that. And even thinking about just the sport of football and even how it correlates life and business. Every time they suit up, they know they are at risk at being hit. They line up on the scrimmage line, knowing part of my job is to be hit both physically and emotionally and psychologically. Because like you say, the press conferences, all the things. And it's like, and to do that every single week and to prepare to do that all week as they're preparing, it's like to be elite and to be elite at what we do. It requires that, because how many of us have had the experience of thinking about as you get bigger or your platform gets bigger or your business gets bigger or you make more money or whatever it is, what are you afraid of? You're afraid of the hits.
100%.
And the reason why they can take those hits is because they condition their bodies to take those hits. They condition their mind to take those hits. They have to have treatment. They have to have support, masterminds, coaches, mentors, trainers. The same thing that we do, they have it in a different way, but there is a reason that they are elite. And it's been so fascinating for me.
You know, the other thing in this that is interesting is that it's not even just being the professional when you're on the field, knowing you could get hit on the field. It's also when you walk out onto a press conference and people have no shame. Like, I've seen athletes be interviewed and be like, so how does it feel to have had such an embarrassing loss? And it's like, they've been hit 3-4 times. They're bleeding of something. They're limping off the field. And people are like, so speak to the entire world about how bad it hurts to be this embarrassed in public.
Yes.
And I think to some of the podcast interviews I had after some of my hardest, heartbreaks on the internet, and the way people would ask me questions sometimes was like, so a lot of people hate you. Like, how do you handle that? And like the hit of being asked a question like that is like, do people not think before they, but it's like, no, because to them, it's a real valid question. They want to know. And we're entertainers. Sportsmen and women are entertainers. They're not just playing a sport. They're representing success and failure and dreams and a million things. And so how do you feel this has impacted your business? Like I realize and understand you went down a rabbit hole with this and now you're like coming back out with all this. It's impacted your business. So what do you see for the future of your business and how has this touched it somehow?
It's touched it in a way that I have really I always have been in the space of being or embracing my authenticity and my, what I call being unrelatable. But it has really there is absolutely no negotiation with me and who I am. None. And some people may know me, may be like, well, that's how you've always been. Yeah, but there's you're always perfecting, and there's always the 5% or the 10% that is like, yeah, but there's that little bit left that still you're negotiating. with yourself of being really all of you. And it's just really because, I mean, Deion Sanders, he's just this larger than life individual. And the reason why people hate him so is because he really is so unrelatable. I mean, he says what he wants to say. He is who he is. He is so, and it's not from the place of he's trying to be against anything. But when you are, authenticity automatically triggers.
Whoa, say more about that.
Authenticity is going to trigger because we have been conditioned, from my perspective, you've been conditioned to be part of the masses. And yes, there's a need for things to work in a certain way. And so our society, directly or indirectly, have conditioned most people to be a part of the masses, to conform to what's easiest to manage. And because of that, as more people lean further and further into their authenticity, they trigger the masses, what I call the normals. They trigger the normals. Because the normals are part of the masses, they're part of the conformity. And triggering is the result, because like I talk about being unrelatable, right? Because you'll hear people say, they're not relatable, or you should be relatable. I remember a couple of years ago, there was this influencer, the internet ripped her apart because she said, well, what makes you think that I'm trying to be relatable? They ripped her apart because you built your business trying to be relatable. And then on the back end, you want to not be relatable. Just be unrelatable from the beginning. But people have this thought process that they're supposed to be relatable. Relatable allows you to connect to people's head. When you are unrelatable, you're not trying to relate to people, you're trying to resonate with people. And to resonate with people means that you provoke an emotion in them. And that's what your authenticity does, because unrelatability is the essence of authenticity. And when you are in your authenticity, you provoke emotions in other humans.
That is genius. That is genius. And I feel like this is such a powerful truth, because when you think about normal, and I've often brought this up in the conversation of there's ordinary, and we're all ordinary, except for the people who go for extra. They sprinkle a little extra on their ordinary, but we're all just human beings. And some people go for that extra thing. And so when you show up in the extra, and you show up with the big personality or the big dreams or the big visions or the big voice, and you believe in something, everyone else notices the gap between the ordinary and the extra in that moment. And there's a feeling of like, you've got to stop. If you stopped being extra, we would just all be ordinary. And I think the breakthrough is to say, well, look, if you want everyone to just be ordinary, then don't even come near me, because I'm just going to bug you forever. But if what you'd like is for us to be the same, and deep down in your spirit, what you're hoping for and wishing for is that you would also operate in the extraordinary, then instead of asking me to ditch the extra, why don't you pick it up and come for a ride?
Right.
Because most people that actually don't like that separation, like you're not relatable, is like, well, step in and then I'll be relatable. But I'd have to step down. I'd have to step out. I'd have to step aside.
Absolutely. What you're like, because what people, when you're trying to be relatable, what people are trying, okay, they're trying to find common ground. And there's an essence of that I get, but it's like, no, you're not supposed to find common ground. Stand your ground and let people come to the ground that you stand on. It's like, but it's the desire to find common ground that's diluting the authenticity, which dilutes our impact and our power and all of those types of things. And like you say, just come over here and grab some of the extra. No, I'm not giving up my extra because you feel comfortable in the ordinary. No. I'm not giving up my extra now. But if you want to come get some extra, there's some more extra over here. There's enough for you too. There's enough for you too, but I'm not giving mine up.
I am not giving up my extra. This is so freaking good. And the lightheartedness and the solid truth of this is so powerful, because at the end of the day, that is the invitation. People will tell you, step aside from your dream so we can both be ordinary. And you'll say, step into the dream so we can both be extraordinary. Who's going to win? well, the person, it would be a lot easier for us to step aside. So we should be nice and we should do it because it would be so much easier for us to step aside from extra. So we should be the ones to do it.
Absolutely, because the masses, the normals are bullies, and they're not even trying to be bullies. They're bullies just because of the sheer number of them. And so it's like they don't even realize that the collective is a bully. It's not like they're trying to be a bully, but the numbers allow them to be bullies. And because it's so many, if you are not rooted in who you are, you will be drawn into the masses. You will be drawn into the normals because there's so many of them. And for most people to stand powerfully in the extra, because the extra is a much smaller number, it can be very challenging to do so. And so that people feel bullied by the normals. They're not trying to, it's just a lot of them. And so anytime something's way bigger than you, even when they're not trying to bully you, if they say, give me some of your candy and they're 500 pounds, you're like, okay, here's the candy. They're not taking it from you, but just the sheer massiveness of them, you think, I better give this candy.
So you know what's really powerful in this? Like, I got a very strong visual here. So when a person, a singular person taps into the extra, they become big. And it's very easy for, like, I've had this experience. I was part of the masses and I felt small because I not only felt like I was normal, I also felt alone. So I didn't feel like I had the group without realizing I had the group, because just the fact that I'm the same as others makes me the same, makes me that I have a group. But I felt separated from the group. And so whenever I would see a person that was big in energy or big in any way, I would immediately feel threatened because it felt like it was me against that one person. But if I were to ever speak up against the big person, everyone that was like me that I thought was not like me would have joined the train to fight the big energy. And I think this is where we kind of don't pay attention to how this dynamic plays out on the internet. But it's like every time a person becomes big on the internet and someone experiences themselves as smaller and alone, they set off in motion the bully sequence without even realizing it. They will tell a victim story that feels real and true because they feel small and alone. And then everyone else that feels small and alone will feel this person's experience, and that will create a mass, and the mass creates the bully all over again. And so then the one person with all the power has all of a sudden flipped and is being now bullied, because one-on-one, this person's maybe bigger, but 10-on-1, the scale is kind of at, but what's the solution to that?
The solution from my perspective is more of us with the extras to stop hiding and stop trying to be accommodating to the masses, because there are more of us in the masses waiting for us to really stand up so they can join us.
Because they're terrified that if they join the masses, they leave the masses to join us, we're getting slaughtered. They're like, I'm just gonna hang out here where the pitchforks are.
I'm just gonna stay over here. It's like, I think there are more of them waiting to see more of us really just stand in who we are, because there's so many variations of who we are. And if we all just really make that commitment to little by little, it's not like I tell people all the time, authenticity is not a box you check. It's not a switch you flip. Authenticity is a moment by moment, day by day decision, because life is always giving you opportunities to abandon yourself. And so it's not, authenticity is a practice. It's not, being authentic is not something you are, even though that's the way that we say it. It's something that you practice, because at any moment, life has given you a decision where you can abandon yourself and you can shrink back. And so the more we practice it out loud, the more we give voice to it, the more we stand with it. I believe that little by little, more people will come out of the masses and understand, oh, wow, there is another way. There is a way to, because all it is, it's the lack of strength in our systems, and I mean in our individual systems, in our nervous systems, in our financial systems, in our relational systems, in all of those systems, they're weak. And that's why we are afraid to leave the masses, because of all of the systems that keep us together are weak. As we strengthen those systems, as we get more reserves in those systems, we have more relationship reserves, like the masterminds and the channels and all that. That's what the channel was, a big reserve. That's what that was. It was a big reserve of relationships that gave you strength, that gave you power, that gave you a different understanding. And so it's like, as people get taught and understand how to live elite, how to do business in an elite way, how to be an elite athlete in the sport of business, in the sport of life, I think people just don't know what's available to them. I mean, more people know because there's so many of us out doing the wonderful work that we do, but I think still there's so many that don't know. They think that life dictates to them and they have to be pulled along, and they don't really understand that, no, you get to be this elite creator in all of these experiences that we get to have as humans.
So one thing that's kind of boggling my mind during this conversation, and also my hair is driving me nuts, it looks flat. But one thing that's kind of bringing my attention to this conversation is the fact that when there's a bunch of us that are in the extra, like right now, there's a bunch of us that are going for extra in our lives, and we're wanting to model this extra for so many people. And we're talking about extra, and we're being extra, and we're living extra, we're learning extra. Even between us, sometimes we abandon. It's as if we're looking. Okay, my question actually is, what about the people who are so attached to being different and extra that it's causing the issue? Because everyone that's extra being alone makes it that there can't be an equal power on both sides. It's always going to be one person against the masses. Every time we look at it, it's like Whitney Houston against the masses, Michael Jackson against the masses, Johnny Cash against the masses, Taylor Swift against the masses. It's always one person and everybody else that's trying to fight against. David Beckham against the masses. It's always one person in an entire universe trying to decide whether they're okay or not. But at what point do the extras join forces and stand up for each other? And is there a reason, you think, why people are so careful to do that?
I think because people haven't prepared themselves to be with the masses. To be extra, using that term, to be able to be effective with the masses, you have to build yourself to be able to be with the masses. I'll use the example, I'm Christian, and I'll use the example of Jesus. He used to get criticized when he was on earth because he would go with the sinners. He would go sit with the tax collectors. He would go be with those people that were not supposed to be of his caliber or be like him. And that's because he was prepared to be with those individuals and impact them and not let them impact him. A lot of times, from my perspective, the reason why you can't do this is because it's not enough just to be extra. You got to prepare yourself to be able to be effective with the masses so you can be with them. And the one way that we do that is you have to strengthen your emotional system, your nervous system. You have to strengthen it to the place where you can actually be comfortable with the emotion you provoke in other people. Because we're not comfortable with the emotion we provoke in other people, we can't be with them. And if you can't be with them, you can't impact them. And if you can't impact them, you can't change the world. And so you got to strengthen yourself and grow yourself and get skills deep enough where you can be with the masses. They don't change you, but you're okay understanding, yes, I provoke the masses, but I am built for this. And as I'm provoking your emotions, I can still be with you because I understand what's happening. And because I can still be with you, I can then impact you, because you have to have proximity to have power with people. You can't impact people from over here. And as we become even more strengthened in our emotional systems and our nervous systems, then the judgment even falls away for the masses, because you cannot impact what you judge. And so it's the work that we do over here that allows us to be in relationship and then allows us to have impact and let what we are learning and finding out begin to permeate in the world. I mean, I know that's part of your mission just in what you do. You're wanting to just permeate all this stuff in all these ways of being, all these concepts into the world.
Yeah. But it really is every stage where there's an awareness of what is being provoked that is not the intention, that
Yes.
it's like every level of that. I was talking about this with one of the other participants during this week. Leaders are like bridges, and bridges get tested. You decide you want to be a bridge of leadership. Well, how many people can you provoke before your bridge breaks? And so when you first start, one person that doesn't like you on the internet is enough for you to think, I don't think I could do this anymore. And so, and you know, Ria was sharing with us that that's what happened for her. She launched a career in the arts, and she went out on the stages, and she got one bad review, and she couldn't handle it, and she had to work on herself to be able to bring herself back and back and back over and over again to be able to handle more of provoking people to feel something that was not your intention. Because when you're like, okay, I'm a leader, I want to create extraordinary change on the planet, I'm going to say what I want to say, and the people who resonate with me are going to be like, yes. But because of the laws of polarity, as strong as there's a yes, there's a no. How much of that duality can I hold? If I can't handle what I'm provoking, then I'm going to take a break every single time. And I have felt this every step of my journey. This has been the hardest part for me, doing what I do, because the idealistic outcome is that everyone's going to get it and everybody's going to love it and it's going to change everybody's life, especially something as beautiful as, life coaching or relationship coaching. It's like, how can anyone push against this? But they will. They will.
Absolutely. And Melanie, what you're speaking to is exactly, I say, to the elite. To be triggered exposes that there's training you need for a skill. You get a skill, the skill builds capacity. Capacity increases your power. Power increases the amount of impact that you can have. Anytime that we're stuck, you're stuck because you have an unwillingness to be triggered.
I believe that wholeheartedly. And just because I love connecting this to the other speakers, because I feel this is how we're so powerful. When we were talking with Juliet this morning, and she was saying there's an emotional response, like there's actually an emotional thing. There's an image, there's a thought, and then there's a body sensation. That's what she called it, a body sensation, and then an emotion. And most things stop at the body sensation, and the body sensation is the trigger. It's that feeling you feel even before you understand what you feel that goes, no. Like that feeling that you're like, meep, like that's where the door's shut. So it starts with the trigger. This is a life reforming conversation. It starts at the trigger.
The treasure's in the trigger. That's why I said the treasure is in the trigger.
But you got to be brave. You got to be playing to win in order. And this is, I think, the real thing. And to bring it back to sports, like you've got to be playing to win and not playing not to lose, because you can watch a game that's going so well and both teams really profoundly believe they can win. And the minute one gets it in their head that they're going to lose unless they turn it around and they start playing not to lose, the entire game changes. And it's like, no, play to win. Don't do that. Don't change your strategy. And I feel so many of us play to not be triggered instead of playing no matter what. And if the trigger comes, then you learn, then you get the skill, you get the capacity, you get the power, and you impact the people you want to impact.
Absolutely. I mean, and I'm sure you have had some things that have stopped you from doing some things that we don't know about.
So many.
But that's one of the things that it's like anybody who looks at you and they are upset or jealous or whatever about the success that you've had in such a short time, it's like, child, you have what I call thrown yourself into the trigger over and over and over again, because that's what I teach, that when you are able to throw yourself into the trigger, because what most people do, they wait until life gives them a trigger, which is why now you have to depend on circumstances for your expansion. But when you decide that you're going to be an elite player, you throw yourself into the trigger over and over again. And so your expansion is accelerated like this.
You're playing offense in your life instead of defense.
Yes. And that's what you have thrown yourself into the trigger, thrown yourself into the trigger. Melanie's crap. She's taking people's money. She's doing this. You show up the next day in a live stream. Okay, let's talk about this. I mean, and you could tell that it impacted you, but you still threw yourself into that trigger. That's that just most recent thing earlier this year or last year that I remember. It was like, if it wasn't the next day, it was within a few days. It was quickly.
It was the next, it was like the next day. It was like, it was about the refunds thing. And then I did a whole lot about refunds.
But I'm like, well, what is going on? I'm like, what is happening? And it's like, oh, and then the next day you were like, okay, let's talk about this. I know, and look, at some point, I'm going to let you speak. I'm going to then turn these comments off. I mean, you just threw yourself into the trigger. And that's why your expansion continues to happen so fast.
And I do want to say, and I think this is so important for everybody that's listening to this, because we have different energies in the channel, as you can tell. We've got Varian's energy, who's like, get a concussion, play offense, let's go. You know, you get on the front line, you know, you might be hitting the head. That's what we do. Let's go. And then you've also got like Colleen, who's like, and so here's where the trauma gets stuck. And here's how you move it to the long-term memory. You know, like we literally have so many different energies in this channel. But the fact is, and I really think this is what has helped me continue to grow, is that I have known when the trigger could traumatize me versus when the trigger was just going to hurt. And you've got to know the difference, and you've got to grow your nervous system. And all your nervous system is your ability, in my opinion. Look, there could be so much more complexity to this, but how I've navigated myself and my life is my nervous system is my availability and my ability to breathe and sleep without problems. If I cannot breathe and I cannot sleep effectively, my nervous system has been hit. If I can't think, I can't breathe, and I can't sleep effectively, my nervous system has been hit. And so if I'm going into a trigger, but the feeling is if I go into this, I won't sleep and I can't breathe, that's not right for me. I've got to get myself into a space of neutrality. And I love tapping. I have all kinds of modalities, kind of what Juliet did to neutralize the emotion until I'm like, I won't die from this. This will not traumatize me. I don't just jump into the fire like, this is what leadership looks like. Like, that's not the vibe. But I really do. It's like, if there's a chance that this needs to happen and it's going to hurt, I brace myself and I go and I stand for what I believe in, even though sometimes I do hit a wall, and sometimes I have been hit by a ginormous football player, and I've laid on the field like, crud, why do I play this game? But at the end of the day, every time I get back up one more time, I build more and I build more and I build more in my business. And I feel like when we look at the people who have succeeded in history, it's the same thing. No matter what, whether they're an artist, whether they're a politician, whether they're a business person, whether they're a sports player, it doesn't matter. It's like, if you can't get up every time you fall, your career will end on the floor.
And the fact is, you get hit a lot less than you imagine.
Yes.
You know, it's like we imagine that we're going to be hit so much more.
It's just people remember the hits. And they love to talk about them.
Absolutely.
So now let's talk a little bit about, like, where do you see yourself going from here? You've always had really incredible clients who really choose you over and over and over again. Some of your clients have been with you since the beginning 7 years ago. You do these retreats once or twice a year. They sell out before you've even done advertising them. It's like, what's the point of branding it? It's sold before you even launch the branding. How does this impact the future? Are you seeing yourself maybe open yourself up to more people? Like, what's happening now in your world?
I do see myself opening myself up to more people. I mean, I'm sure you've heard me say some version of this over the years that we have been in a relationship, that one of my hesitancies about being more visible and even stepping into the possibility of a bigger stage is I had this thought process of, ooh, what happens to my anonymity? What happens to my freedom? And, you know, how does that, you know, impact how I move in the world with such freedom? And so I had someone say to me just a couple months ago, I was in Italy and I was talking with someone and they said to me, and it just struck me because, and the reason why they said this to me is because I was telling them about, I used to always say when I was younger that I want to be rich, but I don't want to be famous. I want to be rich, but I don't want to be famous, because that famous, it just felt like a lack of freedom. And they said to me, what if you could be famous and free? And it never even struck me, those two concepts together. They said famous because I used that word. So it's not even about fame in the traditional sense. Could be, maybe not, but it's just that whatever that means for bigger stages and being more visible for me. And I was like, you know, that just felt really good to contemplate. What would it be like to be famous and free? What would it be like to be a model for famous and free? What would that be like to build a skill set of being famous and free? And so I do feel like I'm emerging in a different way, because I really want to do life with extremely successful women entrepreneurs. It's like, yeah, I like short-term programs and things like that, but I like my masterminds. I like my long-term masterminds. I like doing life with outwardly powerful women. And I say outwardly powerful women because there's so many women in the world who are outwardly powerful, and they got their skipping really grounding that real inner power. And so it's like, how do you continue to build these empires, be in these empires, but really be rooted and grounded in who you are? It's like the blend that I've come up with over the last several months of being a strategist and a sage at the same time. And that's my sweet spot, of being a strategist and a sage.
6'2". That's basically exactly what that is. So what I love about this and what I find so powerful, there's a word I've been playing with, and I think you might like it. But the frequency that I feel I've been really landing with recently is the frequency of being known. And how this feels in my body, different from famous, is that famous means that people know of you, but they don't know you. It means a lot of people know of you, but they don't know you. And so if at the end of my life, people said Melanie and Layer was known for ... I would rather that than she was famous for ...
Yes.
I feel like that frequency in all contexts lands for me. I want to be known.
Yes. And because known requires spending time. It can look different, but whatever that time looks like, but known requires intimacy. And I like intimacy.
So imagine if you open up that portal of I want to be known, and you let it be an energetic match to I want to be free and known. Because I think that you'd be able to hold those two frequencies without any resistance whatsoever. Free and known feels like there's nothing to even work on. And then you just trust that your boundaries will be honored, and it will never get out of hand because you said so, and you have the power to put that boundary down. Like, it will always be known, and I have my freedom, and as long as it grows within the parameters of those boundaries, I will give everything I've got.
Yes. And that feels very true. That feels very true, because I really know that not only my voice, my wisdom, the way I see the world is needed in the world, is needed in the lives of many, 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 many people. Yeah. But I've been blocked to that. And so even to be known, and that really feels true, because part of my impact on people is the knowing both ways. It is the intimacy. It is the sharing of life and business and how I see it, how it occurs to me, and how it as a way to be a gift for how you can be all of you in the world. So yeah, to be known feels like a good pursuit.
I like that.
A powerful pursuit. Yeah.
And you know what else I like about it? When you think about the way you present yourself, when you're trying to be famous, there's all these things like, oh, this person's trying to be famous, but you don't try to be known, because you can't try to be known. You're either known or you're not. But you could try to be famous because that's recognizable in numbers, but known has nothing to do with numbers. It has to do with what people have to say after they've spent time with you. And this is the thing that I recognize through all of the difficult things that happened in my experience. When people go into an uproar about me or Alpha Femme, there's one or two people I've known, but everyone else are just people who know my name and who think they know, but they don't know me. Like I remember what really saved me, a big saving grace for me during that time, was I asked my team to look at every single person who commented to find out how many things they'd bought from me. And when we found out that, in fact, like over 95% of the people who were commenting had never even joined a free masterclass, it was like I'm a concept to these people, and they're fighting the concept. it's not me. Even though they're using my name, they're not fighting me. And how often does that happen? People don't like the person because they represent something that they stand against. It's not even the person, it's the concept they're fighting against. And so I don't want to be famous for representing a concept. I want to be known as an individual, and you make your mind up. And, you know, I was having a deep conversation the other day with someone who was asking me, how do you handle it? You know, when a person just decides that they hate you. And again, conversations like this are always difficult. And I just want to tell you, if you have a podcast and if you bring people onto your stage, just remember they're people, because sometimes those questions catch me. They hit me in the stomach and I can't breathe for a second, you know, like it dysregulates me for a minute, and I've got to breathe and bring myself back, because being asked how it feels that people hate you out of nowhere is
Like,
not
well,
a
I
good
was
question.
about people hating me in this moment.
Yeah, like it's just not a good question to ask. But the answer to this is, give yourself a chance to grow up. As a matter of fact, give us both a chance to grow old. Give us 10 years and decide. Don't throw around hate like it's something permanent when you don't even fully know yourself yet. Don't throw around hate when you don't fully even know me yet. You can disagree with what I say, you can disagree with an entire concept, but to take a stance for hatred at this stage of your life when you're so young and there's so much more time for you to develop yourself and your mind and your thoughts. And beyond that, we don't know each other enough for you to make that decision. It takes me years to make a solid decision on something permanent like that. Like, you don't know me enough to make that decision. Can you give us a few years? Can you give us a decade? Can you give us a lifetime before you make a decision to completely eradicate something that I would never, it should never. And I feel like if the world just gave themselves a beat, a decade to come into a new awareness, it's crazy how fast we just turn the page on things and say, I'll never do this. Can you imagine? 10 years ago, it would have been like, okay, so you're going to be a football fan. You'd be like, I would never. Give it 10 years.
Would have never, no, never thought.
In 10 years, you're an entrepreneur. You've quit your 22-year career. I would never. Well, give it 10 years. Give it a decade. We're all so in a hurry to figure out who we are now and what we stand for now and what we agree with now and what we associate with now. And give it a decade. There's not enough information. And you're not even at a place yet where you are fully formed in what you believe and what you like and what you don't like. Give it a decade.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I had an experience like that several years ago, over a decade ago now, but there was somebody, a coach that I met at an event. She was one of the speakers there, and she was just like so condescending, off-putting, and all of these things. And probably 3 years later, I saw her at another event, and she was hosting a table at lunch. And I said, you know, I'm going to go sit at her table just to see what she's like. She was a totally different woman. A totally different woman. And I told her there, I said, you know, and I told her my experience of her 3 years later. I'm like, it's so different. She was like, no, you're right. That's who I was 3 years ago. And I mean, and that just solidified to me. It's like, you cannot hold to people to a moment in time, because she 3 years later, she was a totally different woman.
Yeah.
She had grown so much from that experience. And had I just held her to what I experienced 3 years earlier, and like, I'm not going to, you know, and I said, no, I'm going to go sit at her table. And she was totally different. So what you're saying is exactly right. Give people the space to grow, give ourselves the space to grow, because we're all just trying to get through this miraculous experience that we've been given called life.
And if it feels like this is the other thing I really find that's so powerful, and this is something you have that I think is very strong. You're always capable of taking responsibility, no matter how heavy it gets or how twisted it gets. Like, if it gets to a point where you're like, oh, I think I got that wrong. Like, you'll take it like that right away. And that's very rare, because I feel like one of the biggest issues in life that derails people is shame. Like, when I look at my stories with any past person in my life that really solidly is not happy with me right now, there was something of shame that they went through, and it was easier for them to hate me than to hate themselves in that moment. They mismanaged their finances. They made a poor decision. They didn't lead themselves properly. They didn't participate the way they thought they would. They tried and it didn't work for them. They compared themselves to other people and felt small. They compared themselves to me and felt small. There's a feeling of shame that occurred. And in order to not hate themselves, they had to hate me. I represented the thing that caused them shame instead of me. And they were able to like put a Band-Aid on it by hating me instead. And I feel like that shame often shows up when it's like, if this person would have had that much shame, if she hadn't processed her things, she could have been offended by you saying you used to be that way. But because she dropped the shame and the past, she said, no, that's exactly who I used to be. And then there was an opportunity to just be with what was. You
Mhm.
know, if you had felt any kind of shame for judging her in that moment and thought, well, I can't go sit with her, I judged her 3 years ago. But instead it was like, let's go see. And worst
Yep.
case, if she's changed, I'll tell her. And if she hasn't, I'm going to get up and leave. It doesn't matter. Like that amount of self-awareness to say, if this is mine to pick up, if it's my responsibility, I'm going to take it
Mhm.
because it's my responsibility. And
Mhm.
that creates so much power, because I think a lot of the times it's just this hiding behind, it's not my fault. I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to look bad. I didn't want to do this. And so I can't handle the trigger,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I need someone else to be responsible for it, because then I can completely pack it into a box in my life of where I was victimized by something.
Oh my gosh, so true, Melanie. I mean, because you're right. I'm a person who tries as much as I can. Of course, I'm human, so there's definitely space for flaws, but ownership is one of my tenets in my life, because from my perspective, that's where my power lies. My power is rooted in ownership. And so I have to own, I have to be responsible, because the minute I give that up, I start leaking power. And I'm not with leaking power. I'm going to maintain my power at all costs. And for me, that's rooted in responsibility and ownership.
I just feel like, I hope this conversation was so powerful for me. It was powerful for the listeners. My hope is that it's also powerful for you, because there really is an energy about you that is getting increasingly stronger. Like I've known you since 2017. And so there's a power in you that is getting increasingly stronger. And it really is, at some point, people will be puzzled why you're not known. At some point, like you can get away with it for so long, and then eventually people are going to start to question,
What's wrong with you?
like where, I don't understand how if this is who you are, then why aren't you everywhere? Like, you know, that real feeling you have inside now that you've never said this to me before. And that's why I called you out on it immediately as we got on here, because I was not giving us a chance to backtrack that of like, I think the whole world needs to listen to me. Doesn't mean they need to live by my words. It just means they need to
Right.
listen and figure out what they think. And I feel like that is new for you. It's a new thing. I've never heard you say
Yep.
that before. And
Yep,
I
you're right.
really hope that is something that you keep striving for, to be known and for your freedom to be respected. But I definitely see that this conversation that we just had today has so much power, and it really is coming from a very solid place. And the one thing now that just needs to be solidified for you is the belief in yourself that you will manage your freedom in the way that feels right for you, even if you let the world know you.
Yep. I think you're right. And you know, I have so much love for you. And I think you're right. This is, yeah, I think I was gonna say, is this the easiest conversation I've been in with you? Because I was thinking
Yes.
about another one, but it's like
No, this is the one.
this feels like just so easy. And it's just, I'm just so impressed by us.
Yeah.
And I'm so impressed by us. I'm so proud of us. I am so grateful for us because of who we have become in relationship together over these years. And a lot of times it was me. It's like Melanie is a lot younger than me. And it was like, how do I be in relationship with this young girl with all this power? You know, because I don't want to think, I think a lot of this stuff already. I don't want her to think I got this from her. I don't want people to think. So a lot of it was me. And then when I started stepping into power, then she had to be like, okay, how am I be with this? And so it's like what you experience today is just such a proud road of growth for two extra ordinary women. And I just love you so much, Melanie, that like you said, no matter how the time has just moved, I'm in and out, it's just always so much love and so much welcoming and so much stand and support for who I am in the world.
Wow. Well, that was a gift for me. I want to thank you very much for what you just said, because that is like a great mending, like of pieces of me, you know. And I think that what I love so much about what's happening right now in this summit is it's showing the undeniable growth that maybe even I didn't notice, like we've all been walking during these 2 years, and it really has felt like this in and out, and everybody's walking at different paces and everybody's getting their stuff on different timelines. And like I know that for so many in this channel, like it was not seamless for me with a lot of people in this channel. It was not, for some it was absolutely seamless, for others there were moments, but like the feeling of a conversation like this for me is like this makes me believe in everything. This makes me feel like anything can be. And when you look at the world as it is in all of its separation, where it is a lot of the times is I don't want to give you my power. That's a big part of what the world is, whether the power is in sexuality and money or in power itself. I don't want to give you my power. And if I feel you're in a place where you could take it, and if I feel like you're in a place where you could effortlessly take it, or even if it could look like you took it, I need to fight for the way it looks, for the way it feels, for the way it is. And so it's very rare that two people that have a lot of power will be able to sit in softness, because one person will always wonder if the other person's trying to take the power. Until you understand sisterhood, where it's like, if we both are in power and we don't try to fight each other, we actually make a difference. Yes. And I feel like this has been a journey for us, and it has been interesting for me to figure out who are my clients. There was a time in my life, all my clients were these young girls in their early 20s, and it was all about like going from having no money to retiring their parents. Like I had a phase like that, but it wasn't long before, after I'd helped them heal all their mother trauma, I became the mother they hated. I just became the replacement mother. It was like, okay, no, this is not the way. And so then it's like swaying into, I want more maturity and I want more groundedness, but then it's this power struggle of like, you're so much younger than me. I don't want you thinking that you know more than me. I don't want other people thinking you know more. Hang on a minute. Like, how am I positioning myself here with you? Because I respect you and all, and I admire what you've done, but like, let's keep it far away enough that nobody gets wires crossed here, because I'm a full grown woman. Like, don't you get discredited for any of this, and at the same time as this is happening, the younger girls who are fighting, like, I'm my own thing, is like, oh gosh, I don't want any of that. And so there's been a lot of a journey for me to get here. But I think at the end of the day, the magic is we all have power. And it lies in our willingness to realize that ordinary is fantastic. Like the fact that we actually got here in the first place, that we're the one combination that got here, like we're ordinary, is like the weakest expression of magic, because how the heck are we here and alive and speaking and moving and talking and building? And that's a miracle within itself. But when you stand for extraordinary, can you build a network where extraordinary doesn't need to feel alone? Where we don't always need these stories of the underdog and the dark horse who broke through? Because what I tend to see, and I've experienced this firsthand, is that people who loved me while I was the underdog and really started touching the success. Like when they were like American Idol, everybody loves the journey of American Idol, but as soon as they win, nobody wants to talk about the person anymore, and their career very often drops. Very rare are the ones who can sustain that, because they love the underdog. People love the underdog. They watch Hell's Kitchen and they watch the chefs in there, but at the end of the day, they go to Ramsay's restaurant. They really don't care about the people who win, because it's the underdog until they win, and then they're a winner, and that's a different identity to resonate with. And so what we want is to create more of a network where the people who actually break through and do everything they've always done, or they've always wanted to do, those people, they're powerful. And it doesn't matter how old they are or at what point they broke through or whether they're more successful or not. It's like, you did it, the thing you always wanted to do, like you did it. And can I recognize your power, and can I walk with you in that? And can I admire you for what you've done without fearing that my power will be taken in the process? And I feel like this conversation is the smoothest iteration of that, because you taught me things in this, you blew my mind with this. I can't wait to write your quotes. And I know that there's things I've said in here that was like, yes, I need it. That's what it really is about. And when you stop fearing someone will take your power, or you stop fearing that you need to take someone's power in order to be valid, you start to chip away at the very issues we have of why people say it's lonely at the top. Because what it really should be is light at the top.
Love that. Yeah. Doesn't have to be lonely. Shouldn't be lonely. Nobody wants to be lonely.
Let's have a party on all floors. Like,
Right.
if it feels like you want to party, if you want to get to the roof, let's have a party on the roof, and let's make sure that there's enough, there's enough room for everyone on every level and every floor.
Only Melanie would say, let's have a party on every floor. Balloons and champagnes on every floor.
The way to go. Well, I have loved this call, and I'm so happy and thank you for everything you said. It really lands for me, and I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. I'm going to read your bio. I read bios at the end so that people actually understand the power of a person instead of reading the bio and then trying to have them measure up to it. I do it the other way. So let's read this gorgeous bio. Varian, a strategist and sage with over 25 years in high-level sales executive experience for a Fortune 15 corporation. Varian is the embodiment of wisdom in action. Recognized by her clients for her profound insight and deep commitment to authenticity, she's a trusted advisor and truth teller who has perfected the harmonization of strategy with intuition. Working with successful women entrepreneurs and leaders determined to carve their own paths, Varian's partnership serves a guiding light and a cheat code to those who value depth, power, wisdom, and emotional leadership as bottom-line business strategies. Varian is the go-to choice for those looking to transcend traditional paradigms and to truly do business and create wealth. That is awesome. Congratulations, and thank you for everything you brought here today. I think we can all agree that bio pales in comparison to what it's like to actually be in the field with you. So thank you for the big energy you brought here. It was pretty extraordinary.
Thank you, ma'am. And thanks, everybody. So awesome being here.
So that completes day 7. Holy pickled Harry Potter, this is going fast. This completes day 7. Tomorrow's day 8. We have more extraordinary speakers. Every single one of these calls has brought something completely different and unique. It's a wealth of magic and love and support and healing and power and all the things. So if you can come back tomorrow, please do. We have more incredible speakers. Varian, thanks for everything. Everyone have a beautiful evening, and we will see you on the internet.
Thanks, everybody.